What if everything we've been told about autoimmunity is wrong? I'm Elizabeth Yarnell. After awakening partially blind one morning in 1999, a doctor told me my multiple sclerosis would put me in a wheelchair within 10 years. I refused to accept that as the end of the story, so I started investigating. Welcome to the Inflammation Investigator, the podcast that uncovers the inflammation lurking underneath your ailments. Because autoimmune and chronic conditions should not be viewed as death knells when they are actually alarm bells. I'm a traditional naturopath and founder of the Inflammation Academy. And in 2 episodes every week, we dig into what conventional medicine might be missing. If you're living with chronic or unexplained symptoms, this investigation is for you. Your body has been trying to tell you something. Let's start listening.
Today we're going to talk about how hidden food and chemical sensitivities lead to autoimmunity and multiple sclerosis. I'm going to be reading a manifesto of sorts that I published January 23rd, 2011. So a long time ago. I've been working on these theories for a very long time. All of these things I talk about in this podcast. Today's episode is going to be a longer one than many of my normal solo episodes. So I hope you stick around. We're going to dig deep into the science. We're going to talk about what's happening at the cellular level when it comes to chronic inflammation and autoimmunity. And I hope you'll find it interesting. It was a true eureka moment. I literally felt a light bulb in my head blink on as I replayed the animation on the web. Did he just say T cells? I wondered with surprise. I listened closely to the narration as a bite of food went from a cartoon figure's mouth down into the cartoon's stomach, and then was assessed by a subset of white blood cells. I turned away from the screen and addressed my cat excitedly. I think he just said T cells. The cat didn't care. She just stalked away as I stood up and began pacing across the kitchen. T cells are a subset of white blood cells that are known to be the instigators of exacerbations in multiple sclerosis. Research for a cure for MS focuses on how to suppress the T cells or stop them from setting off an immunologic response once they have been mysteriously triggered. As the neurologist explained after my own diagnosis with MS 11 years previous, no one knows why the T cells in MS patients decide to attack the person's own body when their job, as part of the immune system, is to protect the body. In preparation for the examination to become a certified LEAP therapist, a CLT, through Oxford Biomedical Technologies, I was watching animations created for medical school students that explain how hypersensitivity reactions affect the body. The objective was to understand the immunologic effects on the body when it encountered allergens, or what the body might perceive as an allergen as tolerance levels decrease. Oxford Biomedical Technologies offers a patented test that uses a blood sample to determine if common foods or chemicals incite a non-allergic, non-IgE, inflammatory response. This can include immune reactions by T cells. A CLT is trained to interpret the results and create a safe diet and menus for clients designed to help avoid triggering these debilitating hypersensitivity reactions. This Mediator Release Test, MRT, and the complementary LEAP dietary management program are most often used to help resolve chronic migraines, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and other inflammatory conditions. No one knows what triggers the T cells to act irrationally, my neurologist had told me. Theories include viral infections, overheating the body core, as in a hot tub, and vitamin D and/or omega-3 fatty acid deficiencies. My own diagnosis had inspired me to be proactive about my future and research nutrition and how it links to health. Despite having MS, I went on to invent and patent a quick, easy, and healthy cooking method, become an award-winning author of a popular cookbook, Glorious One-Pot Meals, and to speak around the country about healthy eating and how it helps those with and without MS have a better chance at a healthy life. But what if? The light bulb in my brain beamed insistently. What if MS was caused by sensitivities to common foods and chemicals? What if these kinds of reactions were causing the T cells to behave irrationally? I replayed the animation. Type 1 hypersensitivity. An allergy is an overreaction of the immune system to a normally harmless substance called an allergen. The allergen enters the mucous membrane where it is taken up by the antigen-presenting cell, which presents it to the T cells. The T cells then activate other white blood cells to release IgE antibodies against the allergen. These IgE antibodies bind with the allergen and release inflammatory chemical mediators like histamine, prostaglandins, cytokines, etc. These mediators cause inflammation. Antihistamines work by blocking the histamine receptors to prevent the symptoms of an allergic reaction. But there are 80 or more types of mediators that the bloodstream can release upon exposure to what it deems to be an allergen. He did say T cells. He's saying the T cells make the determination that foreign substances are allergens. These allergic reactions cause inflammation. So, in MS patients, maybe the T cells aren't actually acting irrationally. Maybe, rather, they could be reacting to something in that person's environment. According to the animation, an allergen had a number of available routes for entering the body, including the nose by inhaling aroma molecules, and through the mouth and stomach by eating or drinking something. Of course, as our largest organ, our skin can also be an entry point. Just remember the last time you encountered poison ivy. That topical contact with an allergen is enough to set off an immunologic response, which manifests on the skin, but also systemically makes you feel both lousy and itchy. Typically, an allergic reaction occurs shortly after exposure, as in the cases of anaphylaxis after eating peanuts or shellfish, or contact dermatitis after touching poison ivy. Anaphylaxis happens when inflammation closes airways, while dermatitis shows up as hives, rashes, or general edema, swelling. We've known about IgE-specific antibodies for a long time. of course. Current allergy testing is focused on either how much IgE antibody is produced or on the size of the wheals created by food-specific skin testing. Though MS is an inflammatory disease, it has not commonly been thought of or treated as an allergic condition. MS patients don't typically exhibit signs of anaphylaxis. But is anyone testing MS patients for food hypersensitivities? Connections were jangling around in my brain, bouncing off the more than 12 lesions multiple sclerosis had already placed there. I couldn't see the whole picture yet. Perhaps IgE antibodies don't tell the whole story. I continued with the next animation. Immune complex type 3 hypersensitivity. When antigens and antibodies bind together, they form chains called immune complexes. While large immune complexes are easily eaten up by janitorial white blood cells, smaller immune complexes can escape. These smaller complexes react with and activate the release of a substance called complement. Complement incites inflammation. If the smaller immune complexes become trapped, the Special Forces cleanup crew arrives to release tissue-damaging enzymes. It seems that more pieces of the MS puzzle were now falling into place. An antigen, allergen, enters the body and gets handcuffed together in a chain with antibodies to form an immune complex. Smaller immune complexes become trapped in tissues. The immune complexes attract neutrophils, which release other white blood cells and inflammatory enzymes that eat away at the surrounding tissues. MS begins with an area of inflammation that indicates where something is eating away at the myelin sheaths surrounding a nerve. You'll recall that myelin insulates a nerve in the same way that a plastic sheath insulates the fibers inside a power cord. When demyelination happens, or the cord fibers become exposed and frayed, the flow of information via synapses can be interrupted, causing an array of symptoms we associate with MS. These include loss of motor control, disturbed vision, and coordination issues. The body heals the wound on the nerve by immobilizing it with calcium, leaving the telltale plaque or lesion we see in the brain MRIs of people with multiple sclerosis. Is it possible that smaller immune complexes land on a myelin sheath, causing what appears to be a mysterious autoimmune reaction, but is in fact food-specific immune complex-mediated hypersensitivity? I remembered in that instant an August 2009 Scientific American article my mother had passed along to me some months earlier about celiac disease. Written by Dr. Alessio Fasano, then a professor of pediatrics, medicine, and physiology, and director of the Mucosal Biology Research Center and the Center for Celiac Research at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, it explains the workings of celiac disease in the bowels. Fasano writes that the smooth muscles of the bowels were always thought to be impermeable, paved so tightly with cells, like the tiles in a closely grouted tile floor, that their scientific name is tight junctions. But Fasano continues in his article, this is not true with celiac sufferers. The hundreds of bowel biopsies that he and his team have performed over the previous 2 decades had shown him that the cells that line the bowel walls of celiac patients are swollen to the extent that the tight junctions in between had become loosened and permeable. Large particles passed through the bowel wall that shouldn't, leading to a cascade of other physical issues. In other words, the inflammation in these cells caused a formerly smooth surface to become craggy and full of holes. Things could go through it or even get stuck on the crags, which further worsened the problem. What if this happened to the myelin sheaths too? What if a hypersensitive allergic reaction caused the smooth cells forming the myelin sheaths to become swollen and the surface to become ragged and rough? The allergen-antibody pairs of smaller immune complexes could get stuck in the crags and attract neutrophils if they had escaped the patrolling phagocytes whose job it is to sweep these immune complexes out of the body via the lymphatic system. As the neutrophils degranulate, they shoot enzymes at the immune complex in hopes of destroying it. But since it's stuck in or near the myelin sheath, the enzymes eat away at the sheath as well. Things were clicking quickly through my brain. There have been many studies of MS sufferers that look for correlations to predict probability of contracting the disease. But the most that's been determined is that there are higher rates of MS among people whose childhoods were spent above the Mason-Dixon line in more temperate climates than below it in more tropical environs. In other words, researchers don't know much about who gets MS, why they get it, or what triggers the disease to begin with. Scenes from a 1995 Julianne Moore movie called Safe flashed through my memory. In this film, Moore portrays a homemaker who develops multiple chemical sensitivity, MCS, a controversial diagnosis applied to a person who becomes so highly sensitized to chemicals in air, water, food, etc., that they cannot live in our modern world. In the movie, Moore slowly begins to develop unpredictable and strange physical reactions, such as persistent fatigue, uncontrollable coughing when surrounded by truck exhaust as she's driving in a city, asthma-like symptoms at a baby shower, nosebleeds while getting a permanent at a hair salon, spontaneous vomiting, and eventually convulsions while she was at the dry cleaners. In 2001, while trying to get rid of the persistent daily hives, urticaria, that had plagued me for 2 years, I visited an allergy specialist at National Jewish Hospital. While the specialist couldn't help me by applying the results of multiple IgE antibody scratch tests, which revealed that I was reacting to all but 19 of the 250 substances for which I was being tested, he did teach me about tolerance thresholds. We each have a tolerance threshold, he explained, introducing me to the concept for the first time. For some reason, I had crossed mine, and my body was now reacting to everything. His suggestion was that I take a daily antihistamine to keep the hives at bay. That sounded like a Band-Aid to me, not a solution for reclaiming my health. Besides, long-term antihistamine use may have its own negative side effects. Our overall tolerance threshold can be filled by the toxins we eat and drink, the pollution in the air we breathe, the synthetic additives we eat in our food, and the chemicals we put on our skin and hair, which our bodies absorb. In short, everything we do in modern life contributes to our toxic load. Everyone's tolerance threshold for his or her toxic load is different, and the ways in which crossing the toxic threshold manifests are different as well. Perhaps the reason why more people have chronic issues now than ever before is because the deck is loaded against us from birth. Remember how the Environmental Working Group found that the average newborn shows traces of more than 200 toxic contaminants in their cord blood? To some extent, we are doomed in the womb. Don't lose hope. It is possible to overcome even overtoxicity. Yet, to my knowledge, none of the MS research so far has shown any allergy-related correlations between the thousands of patients surveyed. And, to my knowledge, no one was reporting immediate anaphylactic type MS exacerbations after eating a peanut. I felt there was still something missing. I watched the final animation. Delayed type 4 hypersensitivity. A subset of T cells react with a small molecule from the antigen called a hapten that binds to a carrier protein. They activate and release mediators such as cytokines, resulting in inflammation. Symptoms may appear after 24 hours and reach their peak at 48 to 72 hours after exposure. This presented an exciting development. Type 4 hypersensitivity reactions that cause an inflammatory response can be delayed by up to 3 days after the exposure? That would make it extremely difficult to pinpoint exactly what it was that caused the problem. Since these reactions are also dose-dependent and patient-specific, it's even more likely that the original irritant could remain a mystery to most people. It's called oral tolerance, how much of a substance your body can safely eat before triggering an immunologic reaction. Oral tolerance, like the toxic threshold, is an individual matter. What is fine for one person could cause problems for the next, but maybe only if they eat it twice in a row or a lot at one time, or maybe just a minuscule amount is enough to set off a reaction in some people. I was studying these materials from Oxford Biomedical Technologies because we had finally discovered the Mediator Release Test, MRT, when my 6-year-old's abdominal x-rays showed fecal matter backed up throughout his colon. Our son's history of spontaneous vomiting and chronic constipation was well known to his father and me, but all the useless therapies from the medical community had failed to solve or even mitigate his severe constipation problem. He was suffering. The MRT showed that my son was sensitive to 41 foods and common food additives and chemicals out of 150 tested items. Eliminating these substances from his diet had profound effects, not only on his toileting efforts, but also in almost every aspect of his life. Within 2 months, he had grown more than 2 inches and had gained 15 pounds. His tantrums dwindled, and he became a significantly happier person. It was life-changing for the entire family. I wanted to be able to offer the same relief to others, so I was earning my LEAP therapist certification through Oxford Biomedical Technologies, the company that developed and processes the MRT. The other parts of Dr. Vazano's article that I found eye-opening were his interpretations of how autoimmune diseases like MS related to his research on celiac patients. This is a direct quote. Indeed, a growing body of evidence suggests that virtually the same trio of factors underpins most and perhaps all autoimmune diseases. An environmental substance that is presented to the body, a genetically based tendency of the immune system to overreact to the substance, and an unusually permeable gut. I realized that my doctors had been asking me the wrong questions about my family history. While no one in my family had ever had MS, if you included autoimmune diseases or other forms of chronic inflammatory conditions, the list exploded. Migraines, fibromyalgia, Crohn's disease, topical dermatitis, and IBS on one side, and scleroderma and Guillain-Barré syndrome on the other. It seemed to me that MS could be a result of one or more simultaneous or consecutive hypersensitivity reactions due to the introduction of one or more environmental stimuli. If this is true, then, as Dr. Fasano said, we can eliminate the symptoms by removing the environmental stimuli. Could it be that easy to solve MS? A disease that afflicts, at that time, 250,000 Americans and now more than 1 million, and confounds the many researchers holding millions of dollars of funding who are actively searching for a cure? Could you simply eliminate the offending stimuli and avoid the whole immunologic reaction cycle to begin with? How was it possible that no one had made this connection before? Yet, so far as I could tell, it wasn't being seriously considered. No one, at least, had looked at it enough to make an inroad that would provide relief to the desperate MS community. Most MS research focuses on drugs that will stop the immune reaction by suppressing the immune system so that the T cells don't react, or affecting the T cells in other ways. These drugs are patented and marketed and reap billions for drug companies. Medical doctors often dismiss the effects of diet and may never have taken a single course in nutrition in medical school, yet they are the ones who propose research projects for funding. When Dr. Fasano and his team announced that a leaky gut contributes to celiac disease and autoimmunity in general, they were met with great skepticism within the medical community. A decade later, there has been grudging acceptance that food does play a role in the health for people with celiac disease, and there has been more interest than ever in nutrition, yet it's still considered fringe thinking. By this point, I had been studying nutrition for a decade. I was interested in how food linked to health and decided to start my own research study. The Fight MS with Food project was founded to explore the link between undiagnosed food sensitivities and multiple sclerosis. An endeavor with the goal of empowering MS sufferers to help themselves avoid MS attacks and hopefully heal the underlying hypersensitivities that led to a loss of tolerance in the first place. A database tracks the many aspects of client progress and assesses the validity of the approach. So far, though early, results are promising. And at this time, every participating MS patient has shown improvement or even cessation of MS symptoms. Just a reminder, this was written in 2011, but this sentence still holds true today in 2026. When I awoke blind in my right eye that morning, I never imagined that the devastating diagnosis of MS would lead me along a path toward helping myself and so many others. Multiple sclerosis forced me to take a close look at how I was living my life and to make fundamental changes that have led me back toward robust health. Sharing this information and watching other people reclaim their health simply by changing their diet has turned my own diagnosis into a gift for myself, my family, the tens of thousands who use and love my cooking method and are healthier for it, and hopefully the MS community as well. In the years since I posted this hypothesis, I have significantly fleshed out how I apply these concepts in my clinic, but the science behind it all still applies. I hope you're still with me at the end of this manifesto and that you learned as much as I did. I will see you in the next episode.
And that's another case filed on the Inflammation Investigator. Remember, every symptom is your body's way of communicating. We just need to learn the language. If today's episode sparked something for you, I want to hear about it. Share your own investigation discoveries with me on social media at Elizabeth Yarnell, or find me at elizabethyarnell.com. Your experience could be exactly what another listener needs to hear. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And here's the thing about investigations. They work best when you're not going it alone. If this podcast is helping you uncover the answers you've been searching for, please like, rate, subscribe, and review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. As a new podcast, these actions mean more than you know. Want to dive deeper into your own inflammation investigation? Head over to inflammationinvestigator.com, where you can take my free inflammation quiz to uncover which hidden triggers might be affecting your health. Until next time, this is Elizabeth Yarnell, your inflammation investigator, reminding you that the solutions to your health issues are out there. Let's find them together.